22 to upload to NFL.com. I want to go over DeMeco's press conference from last night. Everybody's in baseball mode right now. Try not to get too high, not too low. I want to clear up some confusion from some of you about what that offensive line was yesterday and what we should expect in terms of starters. But we all know the offensive drive was a very promising one, a lot of clean football. Here's DeMeco on that opening first offensive drive.
For the game today, I was really pleased with our first offensive group, the way they stepped out, very efficient. I liked everybody just being calm and composed. Davis did an excellent job of driving the ball down the field, commanding the huddle, putting the ball in really good placement. Then to see Dare have a couple nice runs there, that's playing behind his pass, and it was a really nice finish to the drive with Berrios, like him not only catching and securing the football, but finishing physically through the end zone.
The physicality was the biggest part, and that was a Vikings defense that had a smattering of starters. The Texans offense had a smattering of starters. Along the offensive line, Laken Tomlinson is probably going to be the starting left guard. It was Juice Scruggs yesterday. We don't exactly know who the starting center is going to be, Jake Andrews or Jarrett Patterson. Possibly Juice Scruggs. That's an open competition at this point. At right guard, I'm not 100% convinced Titus Howard is going to be a right tackle at this point. I think they're still waiting to see. Ed Ingram had a good game yesterday at right guard. He's been a starter before for the Vikings, ironically enough. So that might have put him ahead in the race, and maybe that does mean we see Titus Howard at right tackle and Ursary starting at left tackle. Cam Robinson's health and playing ability is going to factor into all of this. So I don't think there are any real decisions made along the majority of the offensive line right now. I think they're comfortable with Titus, whether they needed to play him at right guard or right tackle, or as we know, left guard or left tackle, depending on what situations arise. Here's DeMeco on the offensive line itself.
And from my point of view, our O-line did a really nice job of controlling the line of scrimmage, which when we did run the football, there was no one in the backfield. There was no penetration, and it all starts up front. So I feel like those guys did a really nice job of setting the tone. And that's what we want to see from the offensive line. You come out, be physical, set the tone for the offense, and I thought that first group did a nice job of that.
Yeah, what have we complained about? There's no swarm on the offense. The offensive swarm quotient has been so drastically far behind the defense for a couple of years now that it was depressing. So I'm happy to see just flat out guys getting out there. We saw Justin Watson, various other wide receivers throughout the day blocking downfield. Jalen Noel is everything you want out of a guy whose downside is that he's smaller. Think about Altuve. What's Altuve do? He turns his weakness, his perceived weakness, into a strength, and he backs it up with more power than you expect out of a guy his size. So Altuve, small strike zone, can get his hands around really quickly because he's got shorter arms. He turns all those perceived weaknesses into strengths. Jalen Noel, swarmy AF, because, hey, he's a smaller guy. Oh, no. He works his butt off in the weight room. He's incredibly strong. I can't remember how many reps he had at 225, but I'm more impressed with the leg strength. So what do you have when you've got a smaller, stronger guy like that? Smaller target in the open field. And we saw him break a tackle from a bigger dude to get that first down, about 10 yards run after the catch. And I know we're talking about the offensive line here. The offensive line moving in unison and presenting a solid front across the board. Picked up blitzes well, adjusted to slanting linebackers really well. It's going to get harder in the regular season when defenses are scheming more aggressively, but it was just more fundamentally sound football than we saw last year. Last year in the preseason, I was trying like hell to figure out what the hell the offensive line was doing, because there were times when you could see guys just flat out didn't know how they were supposed to sort things out. There was discombobulation last year. I saw very little discombobulation on that first drive. Later on, we saw more discombobulation. We saw also inadequate quarterback play, which is, of course, tied to offensive line discombobulation. But because some of those guys in that first unit are going to be your swing guards or potentially your swing tackles, the only guy I'm really concerned about right now is Blake Fisher, because it has not been a great camp for him. He was the laggard in a lot of respects from those guys on that too deep depth chart that you want to see good and positive things out of. It's getting hairy for him, and he's got to figure some things out. To wit, let me show real quick. that thing. You probably couldn't hear what I was saying right there, could you? All right, well, screw it. I'm sorry, everybody. I was trying to point out Ariante Ursary handling a slanting backer or a slanting defensive lineman, which he did a good job of. This is DeMeco on the defense. Defense is a mixed bag. A lot of good individual performances, but you had a lot of guys out there, especially on the defensive line, that are younger guys, a lot of guys that won't make the team who are out there for a lot of snaps. Russ Yeast ended up playing the most snaps in the game. That dude is swarmed. That guy likes to hit. There's some miscommunications. There were some things that ideally are going to get cleaned up, mental errors, and just guys that might not be playing during the regular season. So we'll see how all that goes. But here's DeMeco on the defense.
Yeah, defensively, saw some really nice plays from the linebacker spots. EJ, nice physical hit there. Jamal making some plays. Nick Neiman. You got a lot of guys stepping up, making plays defensively. Just with this group, we still have to figure it out. Those guys are competing, and competition makes everyone kind of step their game up. So excited to see those guys this next week, see how they continue to progress.
All right, I fixed that issue with the video overlay. I apologize to everybody for that. The EJ Speed, Nick Neiman, Jamal Hill, the linebackers in general, DeMeco has this glow-up effect, and the rest of the defensive coaching staff on linebackers. That's where the two guys that were signed to reasonable one-year deals that are kind of on prove-it contracts that I'm really excited to watch this year, Darrell Taylor on the defensive line and EJ Speed. I didn't hear what the update was on Darrell Taylor's injury, but regardless, those guys are on 1 year, $4 to $5 million contracts that I think they and their agents look at the Texans defense as a place to go pull a Sheldon Rankins or just what Mario Edwards or Foley Fatukasi have done. They can be a better version of themselves on this team. Jamal Hill has a lot of upside, very raw at the position. He only played, it's kind of like Cade Stover, only played 2 years of tight end in college in his life. And likewise, Jamal Hill played safety up until his final year at Oregon. So there's a lot of upside there, a lot of potential. I mean, that's a position group that it might come down to special teams when it comes down to making the final cuts. Taking everything with a grain of salt, here's DeMeco on evaluating preseason games. And this is relevant to one particular player that I know there are a lot of questions about last night.
Preseason, it's tough to evaluate guys, but we don't use just the games. Like, I'm evaluating everything with these guys. That's the meeting room, like how you show up in practice, like what are you doing?
Hold on a second. So are you telling me there's no audio now? Hold on. Check. Yeah, there's audio now, right? Tell me. Okay, I was looking at the old comments. All right. Hold on a second. Sweet mercy. All right, back to DeMeco.
Preseason, it's tough to evaluate guys, but we don't use just the games. Like, I'm evaluating everything with these guys. That's the meeting room, like how you show up in practice, like what are you doing throughout the week, how have you grown from their first day to now. So it's an exhaustive process of really evaluating these guys, not just hanging my hat on one game or even the 3 games, because I know reps will start to get limited the more our first groups get more.
The guy I was thinking about specifically there was Xavier Hutchinson, because I know a lot of you had questions. Hey, look, Mechie's showing up. Barrios is showing up. Jalen Knowles showing up. Xavier Hutchinson's been very active in practice, and that's including connections from both C.J. Stroud and Davis Mills. So I think that the sum total of the preseason is what matters the most in game. You know how it goes in games. Like, as a receiver, this is why receivers can turn into such tempestuous C words because they can't control sometimes the looks that they get. Xavier Hutchinson is in no danger of turning into that guy. Side note, there was a photographer who covers Iowa State, who was at that game yesterday. And I followed his Twitter feed. If you look at my Twitter, my ex, you can see who it was. He was just so happy to be there. Being able to watch 3 different Iowa State receivers in an NFL preseason game. And I think there's still a good chance that Xavier Hutchinson makes the team. It's just a hyper-competitive situation right there. Here is DeMeco on those receivers.
All our receivers did a really nice job. Mechie showed up making plays. You had Braxton making plays. A ton of different guys are showing up. So that's still, we got a really full room of guys there who can play in the NFL. So it's going to be tight competition, down to the wire.
And I said this is, it feels like this is how it went last year too. Now, last year it seemed like it was more of an even battle between Mechie and Hutchinson. Hutchinson is always just kind of seamlessly assimilated into the offense more smoothly than John Mechie has, but we obviously know that Mechie has had his challenges. And last year it felt like the first year where Mechie might be physically back to himself after beating freaking cancer. But this year, it's been more hot and cold with Mechie, but we obviously saw some very good things out of him last night. The thing I'm pretty optimistic about is that there's going to be a trade involved with at least one of the wide receivers on the roster right now. Not going to be anything magnificent or anything, but I think when they get to the final cuts, there's going to be some tough decisions to be made, and they're going to be able to get something out of some of these guys. And some of the guys who are kind of special team specialists from across the board. You got Neiman as a linebacker, or multiple, Braxton Berrios as a wide receiver who looks healthy as hell. And I think they really like him as a returner, but that wide receiver room is just so jam-packed. I do like that, Braxton Berrios is at a stage in his career where maybe he could make a case for being disgruntled about you being used heavily in the preseason, but I don't think he's got that kind of ego. They got a pretty good egoless factor in that wide receiver room, which is nice to see. Hard to come by sometimes. DeMeco on C.J. Gardner-Johnson's health. For any of you that weren't paying attention, there was an errant report that C.J. Gardner-Johnson had torn his ACL. That was corrected, and here's the first time we've really heard DeMeco speak. About. I'm going to evaluate his body language on C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah, CJ's in great spirits. He's doing well. I mean, we're all thankful that the injury is not as extensive as it was first reported. So we are excited that he'll be fine. Take some time. He'll continue to progress and get better. So, thankful to know we'll be seeing them back on the field this year. And always with all of my guys who are in any injury situation, it's about those guys, me caring for them, making sure they are in a good spot mentally and physically. And CJ, he's great. He wants to be around the team, still had a smile on his face. But he'll be back, so we're excited about that.
I feel like C.J. Gardner-Johnson is the guy you really want to check in on, because C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he's such an interesting dude. I think he is wired hot, and he's done a lot of work on himself to figure out when he can just run real hot and when he's got to cool down a little bit. But you go through situations like this, and it can be kind of tough. I think DeMeco's the right coach to have around him in these situations. I mean, DeMeco has an effect, he's a lot different than Marvin Lewis in a lot of ways, but Marvin Lewis had this ability to just have a soothing effect on guys who elsewhere just seem to have turmoil surrounding them. I mean, I don't know if Pac-Man Jones would have made it as long. Think about Pac-Man Jones making it as long as he did with one team, and how many coaches could have handled that. So Marvin Lewis and DeMeco are different in a lot of ways, except that I think they both have that ability to, see each guy as an individual and maybe be counsel to him at times or be a listening ear. So when it comes to experimental situations or guys that, you might be a little bit off about, I like watching DeMeco maybe work with these guys. But I also know that between Caserio and DeMeco, they don't have a high tolerance for the BS. I talked to DeMeco the other day, and those of you who watched the interview said just flat out, they talk about energy vampires, people that kind of suck the life out of the room, and they don't have any tolerance for them, and they get rid of them. I think it was a 2-year process on getting rid of some of the energy vampires, but if at any point they think that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is actually has some fuel to some of that smoke we've seen in the past, I think they would take care of it, but I think DeMeco's probably best suited for handling all of it. Hopefully the All-22 is going to come out here within a little bit, and I'll be able to get down to some of the basic performances. As one of you had pointed out earlier, Mechie, I think the snap count on Mechie was a lot higher than on Xavier Hutchinson. So just as it was with Ursary, Ursary is a rookie. You want an indicator that they feel really good about Ursary. Played his 10 snaps, didn't play again. Whereas guys like Juice Scruggs or Ed Ingram or others were out there, and those guys have a lot more experience. They were out there for 22 or more snaps. So I think they're really that's sometimes a pretty clear indicator of how things are going. I like Ursary a lot. I'm excited about Ursary. So to leave you, this is going to be my new outro because I know sometimes, I don't have it in here. Let me find this. Let me find this because I want to introduce my new outro. Because I know my exits.
All good. All right.
So we'll do that. Let's do it. From now on, I'm gonna end every live stream that's Texans related with this, so it's not so awkward at the end.
All good. All right.